Welcome to Adam Loves Guitar. I'm Adam Levine, and today we're unlocking the 3 best Eric Clapton guitar riffs. One thing that I think is quintessential Clapton and one of his best attributes, especially going back to the early days, is the way that he would use what's called double stops on the guitar. For instance, if you hear single notes like this. So what Clapton did was he played this note A, but he combined it with this note E. And one of the things that made Clapton is the way that he, instead of using, of course he used notes all up in this part of the fretboard, but he also used notes, open string notes in collaboration with fretted notes. So here are these first 2 notes. And then if I lift up, I get the 2 open strings, the D and the G string, and I pump back and forth between the 2 instead of. Then he comes over and he grabs this 3rd fret C here and releases that to the open A string. So we have fretted notes and open strings. Sounds like this. Let's put this into context now. We're playing the tune Crossroads, basically, which is a 12-bar blues. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down 12-bar blues, and then I'll show you where we're going to insert that riff. Here we go. So one thing I wanted to mention is that there's some muting going on, palm muting. Instead of just freely strumming this A-type chord here, I've got an A, open A, an E on the 2nd fret of the D string, and an A on the 2nd fret of the G. We have 3 notes. So I want to be able to strum on those notes but not hear the other strings. Otherwise it would sound like. We just want, it's a lot tighter. I'm using my first finger to, I'm laying it over the top 2 strings to mute those. And then I've got my 2nd finger, it's sitting on the E string to mute that. So when I strum the guitar, you're only hearing those 3 notes. And I'm palm muting. And that's what's going on. Later on in Clapton's career, he softened up a little bit. One of the huge hits that Clapton had was Wonderful Tonight. And what I learned, or what I like about this chord progression, is that they're typical chords, but what makes this progression so cool is that the bass line brings out other tones instead of the root all of the time when the chords are going by. And so what do I mean by that? Okay, so this progression is, I'm going to give you the big chords first, so set your ears up, and then we'll get into what Clapton is actually doing. The song starts on a G chord, then it goes to a D, then it goes to a C chord, and then to a D. Nothing really fancy about that. G to a D to a C to a D. And you could play the song that way, but to get the real flavor of the song, instead of playing a big fat G like that, we're going to use what's called a triad. I'm on the B, G, and D string, and on the D string I'm at the 5th fret, and that's my G, that's the root of the G chord. Then I go to the 4th fret of the G string, and then the 3rd fret of the B string. And I'm just gonna arpeggiate, in other words, break up the chord like this. Instead of, so we go from this G. Now the next chord is D, but what I'm going to do is take this G, the bass note, and it's just going to go down a half step to F sharp. And if you know your chord spelling, the chord is D, and F sharp is the 3rd of the D chord. So this is called D with F sharp bass, or D with 3rd in the bass. Sounds like this. Okay, nice little bass movement. The next chord is a C chord. So what we're going to do is we're going to move down to what would be a regular C chord, but I'm going to leave out the bass, the low bass note, and arpeggiate it from the note E. And the E is the 3rd of the C chord. But more importantly, it's that the bass is doing this. And then an open D for the D chord. So check it out. I'm going to lay down what might be the piano part, and then I'm going to play what I just played over that so you can hear how wonderful it works. G, D, C, D. 3, 4. Now I'm going to come in with Eric's part. So you have the two things working together, and again, that line draws your listener in. It's more interesting than just playing roots all the time. One of the riffs that to this day, I still use this lick anytime I want something that wants to stick out and create excitement. And the funny thing is, Clapton used this riff, as did or does Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. I'm going to show you the riff first, slowly, just so you can get it under your fingers and see if you can keep up with me as we speed this up. So the riff sounds like this. It starts out with a full step bend. I'm using my 3rd finger, and I'm going to bend the 7th fret of the G string, which is the note D. I'm going to bend it up to an E. Then with my 1st finger, I'm going to match that E on the next string at the 5th fret. And that alone is cool. As a matter of fact, it's a Chuck Berry lick in Johnny Be Good. So we have this, the D is bent to an E, then we double the E over here. So 1, first note, second note, third note. Then I stretch out with my pinky and I go up to, on the B string, I go up to the 8th fret. And then I pull off back to that E on the B string. Here's the notes. Okay, now watch how it takes on a life of its own as I speed this up. All right, so let's hear that against a groove here. I'm gonna let it go around. Here it goes. Against the D. Up an octave. Make sure to let us know your favorite Eric Clapton riffs in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe on the way out.